So the state of Tennessee wasted no time whatsoever after the Supreme Court ruling gutting the Voting Rights Act. And just, I think, 7, 8 days after the Supreme Court ruling, they passed a draconian new map that keeps Tennessee 100% red and divides the state in completely comical ways.
We are following that breaking news alert. Governor Bill Lee signs the new state congressional map into law.
So, fun fact about this map, I used to live in the bottom of the green part, light green part there at the south. If you look at Memphis, it's pretty ridiculous because they split it into 3 districts. But then Nashville, they split it into, I think the grand total is 5, which is ridiculous when you split a single city into 3 districts, regardless of what that city is. They're creating a bunch of lean Republican districts in Tennessee now, which means that if the political winds sweep the way that they're sweeping everywhere else, they could actually lose several of those seats.
I think it is so funny when you hear Republicans talking about how, it was the Democrats that were racist and that liked Jim Crow. But then the people that are segregating states based off of race now are the fucking Republicans.
Yep.
Yep. I was having this conversation with my mom, actually, about the party switch. And I was like, I do not give a fuck whether or not they were Democratic or they were Democrats or Republicans, because now the racist ones are the Republicans.
But when we find examples of them being racist, we go back to the president 3 hours ago.
The new map splitting Memphis into 3 districts and favoring Republicans. Protesters calling lawmakers cowards just minutes after the Tennessee House approved the new congressional map.
Because when we go to Memphis, what we see is our culture. What we see is our people. What we see is us being able to exist represented by us. That's right. Looking like us, singing like us, rapping like us. Yeah. And they know what happens when they allow us to be us. Right.
Unlike Louisiana, I have much better things to say about Tennessee. The politics suck, but the state itself and the people, amazing. That said, Bill Lee is an asshole. He's also the one that was like eager to jump on board, being like one of the first states to adopt like a Texas and Florida style anti-gay agenda, including like banning drag shows. So politics-wise, Tennessee's bad. However, they also are kind of misunderstanding their own state a little bit here, because Tennessee is not quite as conservative as like Louisiana or Texas.
Look at all the protesters. Like, we were literally just talking about how government officials aren't held accountable. The amount of people outside protesting compared to the people that are making the policy, what?
Well-off people standing right next to somebody who clearly came out of a trailer park. No disrespect intended whatsoever. Solidarity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and that's also just part of the character of Tennessee, too. You could, like, be going down, and all of a sudden, there's, like, a little trailer park, and then right next to the trailer park is, like, a nice middle-class house, and then next to that is, like, a mansion, and then across the street from that's maybe another trailer. Yeah. Like, no, they're just part of the community. Everybody's the same. Tennessee is represented better by the protesters in this clip than it is the government officials that are doing this bullshit.
Well, technically, that's almost everything.
I was gonna say, that's like...
Yeah.
Your turn to get technically, Emma.
Half of the black population in the state of Tennessee lives in Memphis and Shelby County. Nearly half. How can we sit here and say that this is not about race?
But Republicans say the map was based on population and politics, not race. They argue flipping the state's last Democratic district red is only fair because Tennessee is a majority conservative state, arguing Democrats in other states have done the same thing to help their party.
What they're basically saying there, make no mistake, is that because the majority of Tennessee is conservative, you don't get representation unless you're conservative. That's what that means. This is the kind of siloing stuff that's going to get us a civil war, because it creates the front lines that we lack right now, where we have like red rural areas surrounding little blue dots. We're getting those front lines because they're pushing everybody out of the state that's not like them, and Democrats have to actually keep up with them and do the same thing in their states, or they're just going to get steamrolled, which means if you're a Republican in California, you might as well move to fucking Idaho or something, which a lot of people do.
I feel like their strategy at this point is just to keep the Dems on the back foot.
They're just hoping that they're going to reach a point where Democrats finally don't want to follow them, because that's a safe bet with how the Democrats usually operate. There's usually only a certain amount that they're willing to follow, and then they just stop and let Republicans go the rest of the way with it. And
Well,
this time so far, Democrats look like they're not going to actually stop, which is good.
well, politics has become a game of who can screw over the other side the most rather than working for their fucking constituents.
And while they're screwing over the other side, the working class is getting double screwed.
Without lube.
Like I've said before, don't get so invested in being a Democrat, Republican, leftist, conservative that you forget to be a good person. I gotta say that I have met some really, really wonderful people that firmly adhere to some very conservative beliefs.
This is going to be a hot take, I think, with you. You cannot pick 2 out of the 3, smart, good person, and a Republican. You cannot be all 3.
I will say
It's tough.
You could be a good person and a Republican, but then you're not smart. You can be a smart Republican, but then you're not a good person. Or you could be a good person that's smart, and then you're not a Republican.
That's a good breakdown, I think.
I'll say that your conservative rural farmers, a lot of them are really wonderful people. It is a different mindset and a different vibe where, farmers are operating on razor thin margins, just barely eking out survival year after year. The Democrats have done nothing to help.
Mhm.
And in that case, the conservative mindset ideas of like you earn your way make a lot, and you help your neighbor when possible make a lot more sense because it's in a very small community.
Yeah.
If somebody's constantly demanding help but never pitching in when someone else needs their help, they quickly get ostracized, they get shunned. You participate in that because that is what keeps your community together.
Yeah.
And now that is not going to carry over to city life at all. But I'm going to say that it has its place.
Valid.
Yeah.
You remember 2 years ago how outraged conservatives were that the Democrats didn't have a primary and just put Kamala as the nominee?
Mm-hmm.
They were so mad and it didn't even affect them at all.
Yeah, it's like the actual election that matters is the general one.
Which, to be fair, and we've talked about it, them not having a primary came back to bite the Dems in the ass.
Whose fault was that? Joe fucking Biden.
Sources tell ABC News Louisiana's Republican governor plans to suspend the state's primaries after the Supreme Court limited the Voting Rights Act. The court ruled one of the state's 2 majority black districts was improperly drawn and relied too heavily on race. Now Governor Jeff Landry says the state can hold its congressional elections under its current map. So, Avery, what's the latest on Louisiana's map and how this ruling could affect the midterms there?
Right. I think that this is a very aggressive move by the state of Louisiana. Absentee ballots had already been sent out to folks who were going to be using that method to cast ballots. It's possible that some of those ballots have even been returned. It's possible that we're going to see some legal challenges to what's happening here. The question that it also raises is what happens to the votes that may have already been cast and may have already been returned.
So what does this all mean for the nationwide redistricting battle?
So that's still up in the air. Currently, as it stands, we've seen 7 states redistrict. We've seen 10 seats redrawn in favor of Democrats and 9 seats redrawn in favor of Republicans in those states across the country. We are in the midst of the primary cycle, and so I think that the fallout from this Voting Rights Act decision from the Supreme Court is going to make a bigger impact when we think about the 2028 elections than what we're going to see happen in the 2026 elections. Typically, states only redraw their maps once a decade after the census. What we've seen this cycle is states redrawing for purely partisan political reasons.
If you're going to have an aneurysm over Kamala not having a primary, like what's different about this? And second, gerrymandering is one of those things that can backfire on you really quick because the object of gerrymandering is to take a bunch of competitive districts and some solid districts and cram all the people that vote against you into a couple districts where they're going to win a seat pretty much guaranteed. And you spread the rest out over the state to make slightly competitive but safe seats where your candidate gets 55, 60% of the vote, something like that. But with how hard people are turning on Trump, this could really, really easily backfire if people show up and vote.
We have literally talked about gerrymandering like every fucking episode, and it's like so ironic because like James and I both have poli-sci degrees, and I like the entire time that like we were in college, I maybe heard like gerrymandering being talked about like a few prominent times, and now it's like every single week you are hearing about gerrymandering.
Yep.
It's just
In a way, it's good though because it gets it more it makes it more of an issue that people are thinking about. Like the most famous one was back in 2010 when Republicans took like a massive wave and got like over 1,000 seats across both state and federal lines during Obama's first term, and they then proceeded to redraw the lines in most of their states after the 2010 census to massively favor Republicans in more than half of the states. And the outcome of that was it made it a lot harder for Republicans to lose in a lot of places. And that's how in Wisconsin we've been stuck with Republican rule for the last 15 years, despite being a purple state in every other way except the ones that they can gerrymander.
It's just how the political meta has shifted. It used to be to run for office, you needed to care about the people and do something that furthers their interests. Now, I'm not saying that that's always good because, well, slavery, but it used to be you had to do something that the people you represent wanted.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then at some point in time, it shifted with, growing access to media. It became who can best pretend to care about the people that they're supposed to represent.
I mean, it quite literally is the fundamental idea of a democracy is to do what like the people that vote you in want you to do.
And yet, how many issues are 60, 70, 80% in favor issues that nobody on either party ever takes up?
So for a while, the political meta was, I don't know, we can argue that it occurred sometime around the Reagan years. Emma?
Fuck Ronald Reagan.
Thank you.
I'm like a parrot.
But the political meta shifted to pretending to care about what your constituents want, which is why the number one rule of political debate and making statements is you never answer the question. You answer the question you wish they asked. And now we've moved on even from that, and the meta is just to make sure the people who don't like you, well, their votes don't count.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am probably the most electoral. Actually, no, Emma's the most electoral out of all of us.
Mhm.
Dane is the least electoral.
I was going to say, thank you.
But I'm a firm believer in electoral change making, but like, this has crossed the Rubicon. Like, there is no way back from this without serious reform.
Yeah.
Like, fuck it, gerrymander everything at this point. Like, that's the only shot you have at getting something passed to fucking fix it.
We got to be the Oprah of gerrymandering.
Nobody gerrymanders like me. The new slogan, fight like FDR. What did FDR do? He threatened to pack the court. And when he actually went through with it, and they called him on his bluff, he went through with it.
But packing the court, though, like, it sets a really bad precedent.
A lot of things in politics do, but like politics fucking sucks, and this is exactly why it sucks. Because sometimes you have to do shit that you really don't want to do and that you think is a bad idea, but if you don't do it, we lose everything.